What's up, guys? Farooqi Bros here, back with another video. And today for you guys, we're going to do something a little different. Not talking about cinema, but going back to some of our old roots and talking about some pop culture, because Dragon Ball Daima just came to an end yesterday, and we want to kind of talk about it, give our final series review, and kind of where we think the series stands now that Akira Toriyama has passed away and Dragon Ball's kind of in flux. So, we've talked about anime a couple of times on this podcast. Sporadically. Sometimes we did our top 5 anime of all time. We did a couple of Dragon Ball things here and there. We've done a Attack on Titan series review. We've done a Demon Slayer season review. But I want to spend some time on Dragon Ball because this is one of my favorite anime personally. It's a lot of nostalgia to it, and I want to kind of discuss it in full. So let's get right into it and give our series review for Dragon Ball Daima. For me, and I'll kind of kick us off. It's funny because I'm kind of in a Dragon Ball binge state right now where I watched the original Dragon Ball. I watched Dragon Ball Z. I did a little bit of Super, not all of it, but did some of the highlights of Super while Daima was running over the last 2 months. And ultimately, for me, Dragon Ball Daima it really much is like a love letter to what the spirit of the show is. Like, you have half the show, which is very much about the OG Dragon Ball. It's about adventure. It's about kind of lightheartedness. It's about the gags. And then the latter half, the final 2 episodes, is very much Dragon Ball Z. It's about big fight scenes. It's about huge set pieces. It's about big transformations and epic moments. So in a lot of ways, this show is kind of like an anniversary show. And it is a 40th anniversary of Dragon Ball. So they want to show off that here's what this franchise is and what it could be. But the question is, did it succeed? And to me, yes and no. Ultimately, I would give this show a 3.5 out of 5. I think there are moments where it's absolutely excellent. I think Goku's fight scenes with one of the Tamagami, especially number 3, was really great as a starting point. I think the characters are interesting. I think everyone feels very close to themselves, which is something that Super, I feel like, didn't do that well. So I feel like Goku feels like Goku. Vegeta feels like Vegeta. They all feel like themselves. However, I think some of the fallbacks of the show is pacing. I think over the course of 20 episodes, maybe half of it felt almost fillerish, with how slow they were going, and it almost felt like GT season 1 with how slow they were going. So that was some of the lowest points of the show. But ultimately, when this show kicked into high gear, and spoiler alert, we're going right into it, when Goku went Super Saiyan 4 for the first time, that's where I felt like, you know what, this show is, giving the fans something that they really kind of missed. Even if you're not a big GT fan, people love the visual design and language of Super Saiyan 4. So getting Super Saiyan 4 in canon, both as a child version and ultimately when Goku became an adult, to get the adult Super Saiyan 4 was really cool. And I just was, my fanboy heart was tugging, when I see something like this. And you can make an alternate case, maybe someone on this panel will, that, well, this is just fan service. It's just kind of, not really having any substance, just that, look, it's a pretty color, and we make that same critique for other things that we ourselves don't like. But I'll admit that there's something just so cool about it, but in not just from a point of view of the story, but I think the animation was absolutely fantastic. This is top tier Dragon Ball when it comes to animation. And actually found out just yesterday when I was looking at someone pointed out the credits that both WIT Studios and Mappa were big contributing forces on the animation. That's some of the best animators out there in the industry, and they both worked on Attack on Titan, which is some of our personal favorite animes. And the fact that both of them came together to bring this alongside key animators who were worked on Dragon Ball Super, Broly, that movie, animators from Z, everyone came back for this. So it really did feel like, you know what, we're celebrating Dragon Ball. So for me, even though it's a 3.5, I come out of it feeling very happy and satisfied. But that's just me. Zayan, what about you? I know you might be more of a purist when it comes to like the original Z and what that stood for. So where do you stand on Daima?
I think it really was saved by the ending and kind of the direction it went. The 90% of it, I think, aside from the last 2 to 3 episodes, was very much in the vein of original Dragon Ball, an adventure. It's goofy, it's lighthearted, and they didn't really take anything too seriously, as opposed to Dragon Ball Z itself, or even some parts of Super. But I think once they really kicked into high gear, the fight became actually kind of serious, but between either Tamagamis or Goma at the end. And then when it became Super Saiyan 4, obviously it was just an absolutely incredible moment as a kid. And then even more so when he turned into a Super 4 as an adult. I think the animation was just absolutely incredible. And in that final episode, that final fight, which stretched like 10 or so minutes, they just went absolutely berserk on the anime. I think it was just absolutely probably the best animated Dragon Ball quality thing ever. I think it was just so well made. And now that you mentioned that, the studios and everybody that was working on the animation, you really felt that they put everything into that like 10-minute fight sequence between Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Goma, and it was just absolutely incredible between the Kamehameha and the way just all the physics and the different lighting and everything they did to animate it was just absolutely incredible. And I think it showed that they had kind of like the idea and the means to do this long term, but they chose to just keep it in the end. I don't know if it's because of budget or whatever, what reason, but they had all the pieces there, but they really didn't lock in per se until the end. And that really what kind of hurts it for me, because you knew they had everything, but they chose to go a different direction for the first 90% of the show. And then, but I would also give it 3.5 because of that. It really was saved by the ending. The only confusion I have is just, or my qualms about, is that what does this mean in terms of canon? What does it mean in terms of what happened in Super? What is the true future of Dragon Ball now? Like, what timeline, I guess you could say, are they going to follow going forward? Are they going to move forward with Daima, or they move forward with Super? Because we know we already have manga for Super going that has not been adapted at all. So it's like, what are they just going to forget that forever, or what's the next play? I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm going to get that topic as my next thing, and we're going to kind of, that's our last thing we'll leave it off of. But I do want to just say that when you give these animators time to do things, you get great quality as a result of from an animation point of view. I mean, I always want to put this picture up of what the first episode of Dragon Ball Super looked like versus what Dragon Ball Daima was putting out. And it's just a difference of quality here, in the end. It's like, and giving people time to create something is just one way. So I think Super had its problems. It had some really good sequences late game. So like, I think the final season had really good animation. There's some parts of Goku Black were really picked up, but anything pre-Goku Black, like the show was not giving out high quality, where I think Daima, even in its most filler episodes, it was just a joy to watch. So that's something. And Samir, he just died on that picture. I don't know if it was the photo or some other point he wants to make, but there's some differences here. But Samir, go ahead.
That can't be real. Is that real?
It's real. It's real. It's real.
No way.
It's real.
Yeah, because no, when they started Super the show, they had like the F Squad sweatshop animators in Zero Pay. They're reanimating what the movies already did, so they did not put any care or any money into it at all. They just had the lowest, most F tier squad drawing it.
Yeah, there's some problems in Dragon Ball Super, but that's not the point I want to make. And Samir, from someone who's not like a personal big Dragon Ball guy, you're more One Piece guy, and I'll give you this concession: Gear 5 did kind of have a bigger impact than Super Saiyan 4. A lot of people were debating, this is bigger than Gear 5. I think Gear 5 actually broke the internet a little more, but Super Saiyan 4 still did break the internet a little bit. But from your perspective, did you find like any hype out of what you've been seeing online or from the community in general?
I thought it was pretty hype. I think all the transformations are pretty cool, Super Saiyan 4 especially. And every clip I've seen, the animation is crazy good. In terms of Super Saiyan 4, I've seen a lot of people that are saying this design is better than the original, the GT design. In my opinion, I think the GT design is kind of just slightly better. I mean, I like the black hair a little more. I think he's missing the belt. I think that's what he really needs.
Yeah.
And maybe changing the yellow eyes was a little better, but in my opinion, it looks crazy good.
Yeah, I'm there too. I think both artworks look good. I feel like this almost was giving a nod to Gogeta, because Gogeta has that red hair, and a lot of people were like, "Wait, are they kind of bridging to Super? Like he's tapping into Super Saiyan God?" But just this is a cool fan artwork that had both Super Saiyan 4 as like their design aspects, and the original just is that black hair. It's like just slightly more. It's a little different. It's a whole different vibe with GT, but I feel like this is just like bringing it into canon finally. Also, that big arms, like he's more of like has that gorilla motif going, monkey design. So those hands are huge, like on the new Super Saiyan 4. You can see it most in this. Like it's just the whole the body ratio is different, but it's very interesting. And I want to kind of talk about legacy of Dragon Ball, like the last topic, and where it's going next, because it is in a weird place. Like this is, there's multiple eras of Dragon Ball. Like the first one is Dragon Ball, and the second layer is Z, and the third is GT, the fourth is Super, and now we're in Daima. And Goku kind of is like somewhat consistent through it. However, I feel like Daima did an incredible job keeping him very faithful. Like when I look at Daima Goku, I don't know if you see End of Z Goku, which is the second row, second picture in the blue G that Goku's wearing. I feel like this Goku, I could see him being that Goku. Like he will become the end of Z Goku that's training Oob. Whereas like Super Goku, he's almost like going into such a tangent now, like with Ultra Instinct, and he's doing all these different things, and it's like the story's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's almost like, wait, are you the same guy who's gonna go and train Oob later when it comes down to it? It's like, I don't know, it's interesting seeing how it works. And one thing about Canon, the last thing I want to point out, is the last conversation, I'll get down into it now, is that I feel like Dragon Ball always had a loose canon. So, for example, last episode of Dragon Ball Z, Goku's meets Bulma and Vegeta, and Bulma's like, I haven't seen you in 5 to 6 years. Like, I haven't seen you since the beat Kid Buu. And they completely broke that with Super. It's like, no. Super right now is almost like a year before the end of Z, and they've clearly met each other so many times. Whereas even with Daima, if right now Goku goes back home and never sees Bulma again, the canon still works. You know, like there's certain things that are always breaking. So in my opinion, if you want it, it's kind of eye of the beholder. If you want Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Daima to coexist, yeah, there's gonna be little things that don't work, but you can still somewhat make it work. In terms of what comes next, there's a lot of rights issues that I don't want to get into right now, but I feel like our audience doesn't really care. So I want to get to who owns Dragon Ball, but I do hope that there's a quick fix to this, and that's that, in my opinion, and John can give your opinion after this, is that they should just say this is what happened, and then in the manga, which is being created by Toyotaro, when he gets to the new chapters, he can either reintroduce some Daima characters or send them back to the demon realm, and they can be like, well, we had this adventure. And it's not out of place, it's never happened before. For example, the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie was never translated to the manga, yet Broly just appears in the future chapter, and they say, oh yeah, that just happened. You're like, that just happened, you know, in hindsight 2020. So they can do it. It's some work to do, or you could just see it as this is multiple timelines. Don't think too hard about it. Whatever you like, whatever you don't like, and go for it. Zion, what's your preference for the future of Dragon Ball?
I think the only caveat in trying to put them together is you can say, oh yeah, they saw Broly and then Broly appeared here and there, or even some of the characters, but how can you explain away, or even like you said, oh, the 5-year gap thing, those are small enough where you could just retcon those things. But how can you retcon a whole new form, Super Saiyan 4, that has been introduced again now in this show? How can you say, oh, when he's trying to fight Beerus, he didn't even go to Super Saiyan 4 to try to beat Beerus the first time they met? So it's like, how can you write that out? How can you explain that away? That's where it gets confusing, because, and even Vegeta Super Saiyan 3, how come he never went to Super Saiyan 3 again? Also, when he's fighting, after Beerus slapped Bulma, and he went, oh, berserk, he didn't go Super Saiyan 3. So how do you explain why that wasn't the case if they're trying to recanonize both of them to kind of be in the same timeline? I get, once you get past that small thing, then they just write in and say, oh, Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue ended up being more efficient for them to keep using. So then Goku never had to go to Super Saiyan 4 or whatever. But just that first part is like, if they get over that hurdle, then it's not out of the question. You can kind of just put them together. But as far as future of what should it continue, I think it has to be Toyotaro who continues what the story should be. Because this is the person that was the protege of Toriyama himself, and Toriyama co-signed and helped and gave him major story plot ideas for the manga that Toyotaro was writing. So you know that this is the person that Toriyama himself trusted to take into like the future, like, oh, you continue this in my stead as my protege. So he is the guy I would want to continue the canon of what Dragon Ball should be, where it should go, over maybe Toei Animation, wherever the studio ends up getting the rights or the estate gets the rights. He's the guy I think you should put in charge of, take the story in the place it should go, and then be in charge of what gets animated and what not gets animated, whatever.
Yeah, I would say leave it to Toyotaro. If he wants to blend Daima into it, let him do it. If he doesn't want to do it, then just ignore it, and it just be a side story. Or you could count it, oh yeah, Toriyama's main canon is one thing, and now Toyotaro is just the future of Dragon Ball. And you just go with it. Like Dragon Ball is $1 billion franchise. It's gonna always continue, no matter who's kind of running the ship. It just with everything. That's how it goes, you know. So let's just see how it goes. It's gonna be interesting. I personally always want to see more Dragon Ball, even if it's more Daima stuff, more Super stuff. I'm gonna be there. Maybe the next step is to remake Dragon Ball Z and just give it Daima animation. Like who knows what they're gonna do, you know? So I think remake is the easiest thing to do because it's like all the canon is there. Just do it again, you know. But they've already done with Kai, so I don't know. But let's just see.
That would be the worst thing.
Or how about original Dragon Ball? Remake original Dragon Ball.
Yeah, remake original. Like that needs a refresh. But Z, they already even kind of did it with Kai with at least the new lines. So like, what more animation do you need? Like,
You'd be
it has
surprised.
its own unique style to it, and that's nice too, you know.
You'd be surprised that Dragon Ball Z Kai is almost 15, 16 years old also. Like, it's not that
Yeah,
new
but
enough.
compared to Dragon Ball,
Yeah.
Dragon Ball itself is like what, 40 years old, 35 years old. You know,
Yeah.
that needs an upgrade for the new audience to kind of get into that.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you guys think about Dragon Ball Daima. If you're interested in the series, let us know. We're definitely appreciating likes and comments on different type of content. And we'll be back next week with some more regular cinema stuff. But from myself, from Zayan, and from Samir, we're the Farooqi Bros, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.